Hey Ratbags, I've been doing biome guides for Tinkerlands. I've already done one for the beach and how to get an OP weapon, as well as summon a boss without spoilers. And today it's time to move into the forest, talk a lot about the NPCs, what kind of items you can get, and definitely what you should be focusing on. This is where you're going to be getting the most of your wood and your stone. I've included this next tip in my actual starter guide, but definitely try and build yourself a little base made out of bushes, and then go ahead and fill it in or around it with another line of bushes or wood. Bush walls will protect you just the same as wooden ones, but if you're harvesting a lot of trees, you get leaves anyway, and so they're a lot easier and quicker to craft. When you destroy any object in the game, there's a chance that one of the treasure goblins can spawn, and if you do it right, like I said, with two kind of enclosures next to each other, you've got a chance of capturing him. This way you can go AFK if you stand next to him while he's still moving, and he should be dropping enough coins. You just got to make sure you're really close to him so that you are picking the coins up, otherwise he won't necessarily drop any more, or he'll take back the ones that he's dropping. I've included it here because you do find more of these guys as you're obviously gathering resources in the early days, chopping down as many trees and boulders as possible, but even your base pieces like a door being removed can actually trigger them. You do want to kill them eventually because they'll have some of the life or mana flowers that you'll be able to go ahead and increase your max mana and health, and they'll drop a good amount of copper coins and sometimes silver too. But yeah, I did this for a little while and I had hundreds of copper coins. And that's really the same tip for building a base. Go ahead and use the bush walls, like I said, to set out some rooms for yourself. You can always change it if you want to mix things up. And we're trying to get some of the NPCs to move in with us as soon as possible. Just like the beach, you may come across other little supplies in chests. You've got more chance of finding some of the health flowers here as well as mana ones too. Some, however, will be protected by certain fences or walls that you won't be able to break into until you get better gear. It's worth noting you can actually reach a max cap in terms of your health and your mana, but don't stop collecting them, as I'm sure they're going to be useful for other things later in the game or in the future in early access. So aside from maybe starting up a little starter base, you really want to go ahead and explore the forest so that you can hopefully find the bard. Forest is a bit more dangerous, especially at night where you'll have a lot more of the orcs or goblins that spawn. And of course you'll have more variety of the slimes also spawn at night time, as well as the green ones that you normally encounter. And although it may be a bit annoying travelling in the darkness, it is a good idea, especially once you get some decent weapons and at least some of the wooden armour. Because one of the best or bigger ways to get lots of hide is by killing the orcs. You can get some from killing the bunnies as well, but you'll need a fair amount of the hide, so yeah, you definitely want to take them on as soon as you find any. A lot of the mobs in Tinkerlands have various attacks where they can lunge at you or charge you, but these guys are relatively easier. With hide unlocked, you'll have access to a whole bunch of new items, including a bed. So now you'll be able to set your actual spawn point. So once you've got your guide to move in with you by putting the things down that he wants, that's when you need to then focus on making sure you get the bard to come live with you. In fact, you won't even maybe have to go far, as he should start appearing near or around your base after you've already got the guide to move in. Otherwise, keep wandering around the forest till hopefully you find him. You'll need the same items that you needed for the guide for him to move in, but you also need a table and a stool, and you don't necessarily need the crafting bench. So definitely separate both rooms, as you can't have two NPCs living in the same room. The bard really only has one job, and that's to get the buff so that you can go and explore the desert. You can run around the desert without this, but you won't be able to see much, and yeah, it makes life a lot more difficult. There will be other ways to combat it as well. You can find items that will do pretty much the same job, so you don't have a countdown timer. But otherwise, you've got 10 minutes now to go and explore the desert with that buff. I've separated these guides because I didn't want to have any spoilers for people in case they hadn't encountered that biome and really wanted that first experience. I don't think there's any harm in telling you about what the bard's ability is, and look out for my desert guide individually. One thing I definitely recommend is doing a bit of fishing at least once. This will then summon the fisherman. He'll sell a bunch of other stuff to make your life a lot easier, so don't waste time after this fishing until you go ahead and save up some coins to maybe afford it. Why? Because the fishing minigame is kind of tough. First time you throw your rod in the water, it should actually come up with the fishing merchant. go and talk to him obviously, and you'll be able to see all the items that he's now selling that'll help you catch fish a lot easier. He also has a little quest where you give him certain fish and you can get better fishing rods, although I'd say it's probably worth crafting some of them unless you really have got a ton of currency. One item you might want to get is the coral hook. That helps out a little bit more with fishing so the fish actually get hooked. Fishing is kind of something I hate in most games, I'm not going to lie, but you see that little chest at the bottom, picking that up will give you more chances of picking up some decent loot. Everything from accessories to maybe new gear. And if you want to make some coins, you could always fish and sell the fish to any one of the traders. You just simply click and hover over any item in your inventory and put it into the traders and it will sell the item. Fish themselves, apart from the quests, aren't really that useful just yet. So definitely focus always on picking up treasure if you see one and trying to catch the ones to fulfill quests. And different biomes with different water will give you different fish, as well as more chance of finding specific loot that you'd only find in that biome. There's even a fishing boss, but again, that's not going to be had until much later. And the last to talk about with NPCs is making sure that you get a farmer, as you want to start growing a lot of the foods early. To have the farmer live with you, you just need a clay pot, which you can buy from the travelling merchant. And just like the other NPCs, you can get the merchants come live with you. In fact, there's actually two. One with the purple do-rag, he'll come live with you as long as you've got a chest in the room. So make sure you craft a chest even if you found some more. It was either that or picking up a certain amount of coins, I think, that triggered him to come and visit. The other item that's an absolute must is picking up the frog's legs. It's actually a trinket that will allow you to do a special little dodge. And once you've got this, fighting almost any mob becomes a lot easier as you'll be able to move out the way of some of their attacks really quickly. This is such a game changer. As said, so many of the enemies can really just hop or do damage on you without you really being able to move. So yeah, this is a great one. But I'd still say get the pot first, then the frog's legs. Back to the farmer, buy some seeds, and once you get enough money, make sure you buy the seed maker from him. This way you can start growing these crops, which will be useful for recipes, but you can also go ahead and just sell a lot of the items too. It takes like 2 or 3 in-game days for this stuff to grow, and it's pretty much all the same length, whether it's strawberries, potatoes or anything else. So buy at least 1 seed of every kind, go ahead and plant them, and then save up and find a way to get the seed maker, as when you harvest one of your crops, that's it, you don't necessarily get another seed. Instead, you use one of the fruits or veg that you've got to go ahead and transfer it into seeds, where then you will get more. So save some of your crops that you get for later, but a lot of them go ahead and sell to make more coins early. If you haven't realised, you just need a hoe to go ahead and hoe the ground, plant the seeds, and that's it. You don't need to water them, they will grow in a few days. Last couple of things to note as well, wood does need to be replanted. You will need to put a lot of them grass tree seeds, and you can plant any kind of tree in any kind of soil, likewise any kind of crop, at least from the first 4 or 5 starting biomes. So if you come across some tree seeds from taking down some of the wasteland wood, you can grow it in any soil back at your base. You will be strip mining a lot of the forest around you, so make sure you're always replanning to save yourself having to go back and forth. And when it comes to stumps, you don't generally get much wood from them, so there's no durability, but if you want to save time, leave them for now and get them later when you've got more powerful tools, unless you really don't like things looking messy. A few little tips about base management. Obviously, you can craft from storage as long as the crafting stations are within a certain distance of your chests, and that is roughly 18 floor tiles. I tested this out in a live stream, that seemed to be the case. So my best advice is to make a storage room in the center of all your other NPC rooms. Since a lot of the later NPCs will have certain crafting stations that you might want to have in their rooms to use, rather than having to make double of them just to have a dedicated crafting area, it's just more simpler to set up like this. Be careful of any graves that you find. These can often spawn skeletal enemies, and early game these might actually be pretty tough. Some have swords, some will have bows, and yeah, this one did me in. While exploring any of the biomes, you've got a chance of picking up something called a thumper. In fact, there's one of these associated with each one of the major biomes, and it should pretty much just drop from any kind of mob or enemy in that biome. So you need to collect 4 of them, each one from each biome, and then place it on the ground that it came from. And that will be how you summon a really powerful endgame boss. So for now, if you see one, just put it in your inventory for later. Also, don't forget that any dirt paths you see allow you to go quicker through the map. I wouldn't necessarily waste your time replacing or making your own dirt paths, as eventually you'll have so many ways to teleport back to base, or even you can set up minecart tracks. And look out for fireflies too, as these guys have a resource that you can use. Last thing to note about exploring the forest, you may come across a small kind of sub-biome. It's actually pretty much in the centre of the map, so it may border other biomes, but it's technically part of the forest. You'll only get wood from these bramble walls, but there is a particular thing that you need in this Forgotten Altar biome. A lot of the early bosses are able to be summoned pretty easily just by consuming something or placing something down. But eventually, some of the later bosses, if you want to fight them over and over again, you'll need to use the summoning altar. So it might not seem necessarily worthwhile going to this place just yet. Again, it's still got some little forgotten ruins and bases that you can pick up some loot. So it's worth it at least for that reason. And you honestly got a good random chance of picking up some decent weapons like this trident, which is again pretty powerful early game. I will do a full guide eventually on the summoning altar and everything else you need to know. But if you find any blank map parchments or map pages, keep them handy, don't get rid of them or sell them, as that's also something else that you really will need for later. When I did my beach guide, I got some feedback that I should have probably just included the beach boss rather than save it, as I was worried about spoilers, but at least told you guys how you can summon it. Well, with the forest, you probably encountered the first boss, and this is really the one that you'll probably take on, and of course it's the Slime King. After a certain amount of time, or you've killed a certain amount of slimes, it will just teleport in, and when it does, your base isn't going to be safe. It can actually jump, go over it, so make sure you've got a good enough exit point so you can fight it outside. It's got 500 health, so it's pretty chunky, but not insurmountable. You can take it on with really early gear, like the boomerang, but it definitely will be a bit tougher. Highly recommend though range gear at least. Its phases where it does these jumps pretty much 3 times firing projectiles, and then it will do a big jump where it releases mini slimes, and any kind of hit at this stage when you're maybe wearing just rusty armor that you might have bought from a trader or wooden armor is going to be pretty deadly. When you see it flash like that, you know it's going to do a series of 3 jumps, a big one and then a couple smaller ones. So again, even more reason to try and pick up the frog's leg accessory so you can dodge out the way. Now you have got a chance of also collecting a summoning idol from a slime drop. Or if you go ahead and collect 50 of the slime mucus, you can actually craft one yourself. There's basically 3 items that you can farm by taking on the Slime King multiple times. Something called the Jade pistol that fires mucus as ammo, so it might be worth actually saving onto them, and don't craft any idols, just wait for the Slime King to carry on spawning. You also get like a slime dagger or slime sword, or at least a chance of one of these items spawning. The first time you kill him, you should also get something called the compass. This is how you can reset the map and basically have more resources respawn, more enemies. And in actual fact, that might be what you need the map parchments for, rather than the actual summoning altar, if I remember rightly. 7 damage, you get an extra 13% critical hit chance, but it doesn't have any knockback. It does do quite a lot of damage, 29 with a 13% crit chance as well, but it does use that mucus as ammo. And yeah, Lucky Moustache gives you a 50% increase in item drop rates. Once you've defeated the Slime King for a first time, whatever method you chose to summon it, or if it just appeared, it shouldn't necessarily come back again unless you go ahead and summon it. There's no cooldown either, so do make sure you kill as many slimes as possible to get lots of the mucus, as that's the thing you really want to farm, is trying to get the moustache. The rest of the game, depending on your difficulty, it will be a lot tougher. At Explorer it's got 375 HP, Adventurer 500, Survivor 875. And that's, I think, pretty much it. If you can find the waypoint that is in the forest, great. Otherwise there's usually one close enough to the beach, straddling both biomes. Obviously the maps are procedurally generated, but I do find a lot of the things like these waypoints are roughly in the same area. I'm going to be talking about how to get hold of the blacksmith and a lot more in the desert guide. That's the next biome that you should really try and explore. Hopefully this has been helpful. Do let me know if it has, and I'll see you rat bags soon.